Hey everybody, welcome to a special episode of 30-year anniversary of Raw is War, or aka Monday Night Raw. Me and my co-host with the most, head booker, former pro wrestler, one of the most brilliant minds in pro wrestling today. My co-host, everybody welcome him back in, Mr. Randall. Mr. Randall, what is going on, good sir?
It's playoff. Super wild card weekend. So, 49ers did their thing. We're looking to see what's going to happen today. Obviously, we're recording early on a Sunday morning. Early for me anyway. Ready to get this going.
You're a man of great character. No doubt it's early. As we're speaking, I'm actually eating some applesauce. And for some reason, in my mid to early 20s, I really didn't eat applesauce at all. It was like, the funny thing about applesauce is like, as a kid, it's like your whole, basically up until like, I guess most kids up until like 8 or 9 are like applesauce crazy. Then I started to venture into the strawberry sauces and and things of that nature. And then the berry ones that came out, and for some reason, from the ages of like, I would say like 9 to 31, I can count on my hands how much applesauce I've eaten. What would you say, Randall, of the lack of applesauce throughout most people's lives? Do you think that's kind of how it goes in life with the applesauce? Because I really feel like there's a big period of my life where I didn't enjoy the greatness of the sauce.
I can remember as a kid, we used to get jars of it and, just pour it out of the jar instead of getting the little cups. Now I buy it for my son, but I have no desire to go for it, probably because of eating so much of it as a younger kid. You just kind of get burnt out on something like that.
Yeah, you sauced out on the sauce. Well, the great thing about applesauce is, first of all, the consistency is amazing. I know some people are like texture eaters, and they don't, certain textures bother them. But there's something about the perfect puree that applesauce presents itself in, and it's just very nice to the palate. But I don't just eat pure applesauce. I eat the cinnamon ones from Musselman's. It's really, 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 really good.
That's what I buy for him.
The Musselman's?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what happened to Mott's, but they fell off, man. They used to be good back in the day, but they really fell off.
Yeah. But, I didn't really have a long period of time where I was eating applesauce. Like, I remember as a kid, like, the fruit that I used to eat the most would be, like, the fruit cocktail in the can.
Oh, okay. True. Well, enough with the applesauce talk, guys. We're going to hop into the 30-year anniversary of Raw. We're going to go back to a good time that Randall is very a big fan of, and I'm trying to be more...
you would think so with... we'll get into that.
We're going to go back to WWE Monday Night Raw, January the 11th, 1993, because it is the 30-year anniversary of that. And we're going to do a watch along. So grab your peacocks, get into episode, pause, go to season 1, episode 1. Okay. So I want to give you guys time to do that. Get into Peacock, go to season 1, episode 1. And that's going to be a January.
Take a pause if they're not there yet. Season 1, episode 1. Let's get this thing going.
Okay, here we go. All right. 1, 2, 3. Everybody hit your buttons. We out here. Let's go.
You can't count down like that. Wait a minute. You need to give people a nice... First of all, it's either count down or count up. It's either 1, 2, 3 or 3, 2, 1.
Which one do you like?
3, 2, 1 is a countdown because you're literally counting down. It's 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
And you got to give them a nice... cadence. You can't just hop on and say.
All right, let me do my radio voice. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. All right. I love how it opens up here, sir.
Yep.
Chilly, New York City, baby.
They see Sean Mooney, who was the guy that you would regularly see doing the updates on Superstars and some of the other shows. He was do like the event center. See Bobby Heenan enter into the picture. I don't know if you're a few seconds behind, a few seconds before me.
Yeah, I see Bobby Heenan talking to him. Yo, this is as a person who grew up in the Attitude Era, as a 1995 and greater. It's kind of trippy to see Bobby Heenan on WWF.
That's crazy to hear somebody actually say that.
It is trippy though. You think because for me, I think of him more of a WCW person.
I completely understand. Here they're doing the Raw intro that they did at the time, different music, and I'm going to tell people something that they probably would have assumed or they would have assumed differently. When Raw first came out as a show, I did not like it at all.
Really?
I did not like it.
Why not?
Yes, I did like the intro, but I did not like this. You see this? You see how the Manhattan Center that they're in?
Mm-hmm.
That is an extremely small venue compared to what I was used to seeing. As we see Vince McMahon, the Macho Man, and Rob Bartlett, who is only on like a few. He's in the first year. He came out of nowhere for wrestling purposes, but
yeah,
it's a smaller venue compared to what I was used to seeing, and it just looks weird. Don't get me wrong. I was used to watching WCW every week in the studio on Saturday night, but this just seemed different for the WWF. And for me, when I started watching wrestling in 1988, I used to watch primetime wrestling with Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon, where they would, they would be in a studio talking, but then they would send to a video of a match from, a big arena or a house show from Madison Square Garden or something like that. So like this setup, it was just like, this is just weird.
Yeah,
I didn't like it.
And it's so interesting. The very, very first match of Raw is a brother, which is so dope. Coco Beware in 1990. Wow, that's so dope that the very first starting match was a brother. He's dressed like someone in the 90s. The fade is very 90s. Randall, did you ever rock a fade like that personally?
I used to wear a box.
Oh, the word. Okay.
Not with the skin around it.
You got he's showing a lot of skin. That's real.
Be like a box fade, but as we see Yokozuna and Mr. Fuji, who has hair here, who we didn't really see much of that before.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this period of time in the WWF, I mean, as a fan who liked a lot of the early 80s or not early 80s, late 80s to early 90s, this was the period of time where I would watch wrestling because I liked wrestling and I liked a lot of people there, but this was not particularly my favorite time period. And I'll tell you, I can tell you, is that I used to rent wrestling tapes pretty much every weekend. I would go and rent like 3 or 4 tapes from our local video store, probably almost every weekend. And, as we get through the years, start accumulating more tapes. It's not like now where there's like hundreds and hundreds of things to choose from, right? WWF only had like 4 pay-per-views a year. By this year, they added a 5th. And WCW usually had about 5 or so. So, as years go on, there's more and more selections. I didn't rent a lot of stuff from 1993 that often. I would go to 89, 90, 91, but usually 93 would be a year where I'd be like, I'd rent it here and there, but it wouldn't be like something I would get like often.
Yeah, I got a question for you. We see Yokozuna, no doubt a well-known, respected worldwide entertainer and sumo wrestler. How big was it? Because again, we do have an age gap here. How big was it for them to get Yokozuna in WWF at the time? How big was he a deal? How big a deal was he?
You said how big was it for them to get him?
Yeah, how big of a deal was it for him to appear on television and also wrestle for WWF?
It wasn't. I'm trying to understand where the context of the question that you're asking comes from.
Was he like because Yokozuna is well known as a sumo wrestler? Was he a?
No, he wasn't. No, not at all. What? That's a gimmick, man.
Oh, I thought for real he was. My whole life I thought Yokozuna was like a world class sumo wrestler.
To clarify, it's Yokozuna with an N, not an M.
It's my Baltimore. Yokozuna, shorty. Okay, Yokozuna.
And no, he was not a sumo wrestler. He was.
It's a gimmick.
He was a wrestler. He wrestled in the AWA for a little bit.
Oh my God, my whole life has been a lie, bro. I thought he was like a world class.
No, he wrestled in the AWA for a little bit, and then he would have been around some different places here and there. But he came into the WWF in basically like the summer to fall of 1990.
Bro, you literally telling me the Tooth Fairy is not real. Literally my entire life, because I never go back to 1993 wrestling. I just can't watch it. My whole life, I literally thought this dude was like a world class.
You do realize he's in the Samoan family, right?
Yeah, I do realize that. So he's not really, yeah. But he could be a sumo wrestler and still not be. He could still be Samoan and a sumo wrestler. Those two things can exist.
That's true. But remember, he wasn't portrayed as a sumo. He wasn't portrayed as a Samoan back then. He was
of course
portrayed as being Japanese.
Yeah, which is totally different cultures. I get that part, but it's not out of the realm of possibilities. Especially with the '93 lens of politics and representation. The average American fan, I'm not sure if they could distinguish. And Middle America could distinguish if he was Samoan versus Japanese, or so.
Well, that's the point. I'm just saying, like,
he's because he's related to he's part of the isn't he part of the bloodline?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the bloodline is a faction.
But the overall the lineage, the family, the blood. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, bro, you just ruined my whole 32 years of life, bro. I literally thought this dude was like a big national,
Now he's dominating Coco Beware for the people who may just be listening and not watching on video. And this is what matches typically were back then. Except, you'd see a lot more enhancement talents on superstars than you would right now. But even on primetime wrestling, you would still see known guys face each other. But this is kind of the evolution of that. So for those who don't know, Raw is not the first show that the WWF had on Monday nights in this time slot. They literally had a different show called Primetime Wrestling that aired from 1985 to the week before or 2 weeks before this. So it wasn't like, oh, the WWF is going to start showing on Monday nights. It's like they already had a Monday night show. This just started being he just dropped right on Coco there.
Yeah, wow. That's quite a bit.
Crazy. But Primetime had kind of gone through different iterations, which I don't understand why. Because, like I said, for the longest, it was Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon in a studio, kind of going back and forth, being those personalities that you be familiar with. Then they shoot to wrestling in different arenas. Then they kind of changed it to where they did a studio format where they'd have either Sean Mooney or Vince McMahon hosting, and then they'd have a guest with Bobby Heenan, and then they bring in some wrestlers and stuff, and they talk with a fake studio audience. And then it kind of changed from that to a panel show where you'd have Vince McMahon at the head of the table, and then you'd have a panel of 4 guests. So you'd have Gorilla Monsoon, Bobby Heenan, Hillbilly Jim, and Slick, as an example. They're promoting the 1993 Royal Rumble coming up here, which, I used to like these commercials the way they used to do them. Things just used to be so different in the way that they, really promoted these things and promoted the guys. Now a lot of days you don't see them promote the individual guys as much as they promote the name of the pay-per-view or the WWE itself.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. So now we're back here. We got Macho Man. We got Vince McMahon, who's doing the announcing here, and ICO Pro. What is ICO Pro? Are you aware of that? We see that big sign at the.
ICO Pro was a supplement company that Vince McMahon, I think, invested in or had an ownership share in or something like that. But it was around the time when he started doing the WBF, which was the World Bodybuilding Federation. They started doing for ICO Pro. So every week you'd see commercials with a wrestler training in the gym, and then at the end, you gotta want it or you gotta have it or something like that.
Yeah. So now we see Bobby Heenan here, and they doing a video promo here. Or
I believe what he's saying right now. I don't have my subtitles on, which I should.
He's talking about Mr. Perfect.
I believe he's also it's basically telling people that he's going to be debuting Lex Luger at the Royal Rumble. Let me get my subtitles on.
What a talker Bobby Heenan was too. Really great talker.
Let's see. But there's only room in this world for one human. Yes, he's basically hyping up that he's about to. He's basically talking up right now that he's got this guy coming that's even more perfect than Mr. Perfect. It's going to be Lex Luger.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't. If anybody's ever seen that debut, Bobby Heenan is selling the narcissist Lex Luger to the world in a highly entertaining way. But yeah, so that's what this is right now.
Yeah. Wow, this is a great segment. I loved what he's wearing. It's very early '90s. It's like a romper and a sport coat. I don't know.
It's a shirt, but he wore that in the '80s too.
Oh, okay. Whew, that's a sparkly shoulder sleeve. Now we're back here as we see the Monday Night Raw dashing over here, and we see
now we see the Steiner brothers.
Yes,
and
sir.
There's another thing, like, you know, I like the Steiner brothers. They're one of my favorite tag teams of all time. I did not like them as much in the WWF as I did the previous years in WCW. They were just different. That even from it was just a different presentation. I didn't like the music, the little, you know, almost like a fight song rip-off type thing that they had. I didn't like it.
Well, one thing you got to appreciate here is Scott Steiner's mullet in all of its glory. That is how much gear is his mullet on? Do you think?
Look at his arms, even back then in '93.
That boy was he was about that life. How much gear do you think his mullet was on?
I can tell you, I saw Scott Steiner in the gym one time.
Yeah,
and I was delightfully terrified. You can see Doink in the back. You can see Doink in the background, by the way. You see he's antagonizing the fans.
Yeah. Wow. Do you like that old WWF logo too? Is that your favorite one?
The one that they had at the entrance?
Yeah, kind of looks like a rainbow in a way.
I didn't like that.
Okay.
I like the classic WWF logo that had that I don't know if you call it like ivory kind of look to it.
Yeah.
But like the way that they made that rainbow, like they also had that entrance set that had all the colors on it. I didn't like that either.
Okay, gotcha.
But we're also talking about a period of time that I just, you know, it's not my, like 92, 93, 94. Those are not particularly my favorite times. Although 94 was better than 92 and 93, but they're just not my favorite.
Yeah.
I'll watch it. I can respect certain things about them, like, you know, the Brett Nolan stuff, but they just weren't my favorite. Another
thing you notice when you're watching this 1993 version of Raw, there is no Titantron at this point. There is no, ramp coming down. It's very stripped down.
But again, you know, they never really had that anyway. I mean, they'd have a video board. They would start using video boards probably around this time. But even with those like Raw didn't use that probably for the first year and a half or so.
Yeah.
But the Titantron itself, the Titantron that we're talking about, like the modern day version, that didn't debut until March of 1997.
Oh wow!
But,
so quite a bit of time between them.
Yeah, but they would use some video boards that would display like the name or graphics or something like that.
Yeah.
Every now and then they would show some, like, you know, I can tell you like in Survivor Series '93 they used it where they had Doink on there talking to Bam Bam Bigelow, but it wasn't the same as like what you would think now.
Yeah.
But that was something that they started doing like 93-ish.
Yeah.
Maybe 92.
Now, back in I have a question for you, Randall, since you do have a couple years on me. Back in 1993, were fans keenly aware that Vince McMahon actually owned the WWF, or they just looked at him as an announcer? Where were you in that mindset at that time?
I can tell you, at this point, I was 8 years old, so this difference between real and not real, it was not really like a concern for me. I watched the TV show as what I saw on the TV show. I wasn't interested in who owned the company or anything
gotcha.
or whose contract was what. Like, that wasn't a thing for me.
Yeah.
And I would bet that for most people watching it, most people didn't look for that. I mean, Vince McMahon being the owner was definitely brought up probably the year before with all the scandals, with the steroid scandal and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But like for most kids didn't pay it. Like most kids weren't watching Hard Copy. Okay.
Gotcha.
Most kids were watching A Current Affair. Most kids were watching the TV show. And
by the way, that finishing move, that bulldog with on the shoulders, that's a dope as finishing move. Also, question for you. So you're saying back in the early 1990s, it was a lot of squash matches. Is what you're saying? It wasn't really competitive matches like a lot of fans expect nowadays.
Right, because the main thing was what these TV shows are infomercials. As we see Bobby Heenan dressed as a woman trying to get into the arena, trying to get into the building for Raw. But what these shows are basically infomercials to get you to buy tickets for when they come to your town. You see angles that are shot. An angle's not going to be shot every single segment. It's not going to be shot every single week necessarily. You're going to see these people highlighted in a way that makes them superstars. That's kind of why they call them that. But you're going to see them. You're going to see that shot to where, as we see Razor Ramon.
Yes, sir. And Razor Ramon is from Maryland, by the way. He's a Marylander. Him and all of his machismo and all the chains. And in this point in time in 1993. January 11th. How over was Razor Ramon with the audience?
Again, like, in 1993, he was still a heel.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he just came to WWF in like the fall of 1992.
Okay, got you. So this is relatively new into his run.
Yeah, I mean, we understand who he is, but again, he's a heel. So, like, the term over, again, I hate using these insider terms all the time, but like he was a guy, you understood who he was, but as far as popularity and him becoming this bigger known figure, like that probably doesn't start happening for like another probably year, really, because he's a heel. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So the cool heel wasn't really a thing in the early 90s. Like everyone was like, "Oh, I want to be a cool heel, be a cool heel." He was more. He's like true, like back when he's like trying to stay true to what a heel was.
Yeah, I mean, this is just one of these things that's kind of weird in wrestling. Like, do you ever like go watch action movies and root for the villain?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
You regularly go and root for villains.
I mean, it depends on what movie it is, but in some of them I do, like in Black Panther. But in general, no. I want the hero to get out of the way and say, save the day.
So this is just a difference in presentation. We're talking about, back then it's okay. Here's your good guys. Here's your bad guys. You as a fan are invested because, again, it really all starts with the commentary. Like when you have commentary that real quick, we have Owen Hart here. He's basically talking about they're setting up the match between Razor Ramon and Bret Hart at the Royal Rumble as we see Razor Ramon attack Bret's brother Owen right
in the back. Look at that. He is just. I like that. So they're doing backstage the trash can. They're going to recap from that. Okay.
Now here's the thing. Stuff like that didn't happen all the time, right? They didn't do that regularly. But because they did it, it was meant to get you to hate Razor Ramon. Like. They're purposely trying to get the fans to like and dislike someone. Yeah. They're not just putting Bret Hart in babyface matches against other babyfaces all the time, right? Yeah. They're not, because again, that's counterproductive. If you're trying to build up the most interest, it's like a football team. You want the fans of the Baltimore Ravens to like the Baltimore Ravens. You don't want them to like the Cincinnati Bengals when they come to town. Yeah. Yeah, and it looks like in the early part of Raw, they definitely gave people time to get their rocks off from a promo point of view. I think they definitely he just flicked Vince McMahon he just flicked him with a toothpick. Yep. That's the so funny thing. My dad he's a toothpick aficionado. My entire childhood, he always had a toothpick, like it was always in his mouth, and I was like, why does the toothpick industry, I don't know who, it's like almost like to me, it's like the milk industry. Just get some floss. What's up with a toothpick? But, did you know that Ric Flair was on the second and third episodes of Raw?
I did not know. I know he went back and forth between NWA and WWF. Apparently people say, go ahead.
I wouldn't call it back and forth. He left the NWA, went to WWF, or he left WCW, went to the WWF and came right back about 18 months later.
Yeah, he did a little flip flopping at this time period, right?
Yeah, he was coming, but he would leave here in 2 weeks in a lose at least town match against Mr. Perfect, and he would come back to WCW in February.
Now we got a gentleman shooting flames and sparklers out of his arms. This is very
Max
19. What'd you say?
Max Moon.
This is very 90s. Max Moon. Looks like a. Okay, so I've actually seen this wrestling toy for Max Moon. So apparently he was relatively popular enough that for people to have a toy of him. From your memory, from your memory of Max Moon, what did you think of him as a kid?
Nothing. I mean, he was.
Oh my!
He was
Hold up, bro. I gotta roast this whole outfit, bro. He looks like a toenail clipper, like a human toenail clipper. So yeah, go back to the Max Moon slander.
You saw Michaels with his colored belt. I thought Shawn Michaels may have had one too.
Mm-hmm. So was Max Moon ever was he considered a mid card, or was he considered was he getting a lot of TV time back then?
Max Moon was a guy that you would know his name because they would show Max Moon, like if it was Superstars or Challenge or All American Wrestling, you might see Max Moon pick up victories against straight up enhancement talent, right? But if Max Moon were to go up against someone like Shawn Michaels or any like if he faced IRS or anybody like that, he was going to lose.
Yeah.
So, he was somebody that they built up enough credibility to where if he had a match against someone, it'd be like, oh, it's Max Moon against Shawn Michaels, as opposed to currently in the ring, somebody against Shawn Michaels.
Okay, gotcha. Shawn Michaels in all of his boy toy glory here against Max Moon, throwing an elbow there. I just think that whole outfit. I've seen a Max Moon toy. I know for a fact someone in my family has one. I've seen one. But I didn't know that he shot flames out of his arm. This is so interesting.
Actually, if I'm not mistaken, the original Max Moon was really supposed to be Conan, and I think something happened where Conan backed out of it, or whatever happened, it didn't work out, and then they put this guy in there as Max Moon.
Yeah. Did Max Moon last into the Attitude Era or no?
No.
Okay.
Max Moon may have been a thing from like late 92 to maybe 94.
Okay, got you. Wow.
I think by 94 is when they kind of switched to Aldo Montoya, which was just incredible. But they switched to Aldo Montoya, and that's when they had that type of a guy.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I just can't get over his get up here.
And Max Moon, by the way, was Paul Diamond. This version of Max Moon,
Mm-hmm.
Paul Diamond, he was a guy in a tag team in the AWA, which they had matches with Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty back in the AWA. So these two are very familiar with each other just from working wise.
Mm-hmm. So looks like it. Okay, he was Max Moon for a short. Conan was Max Moon for a short period of time.
Yeah, I mean, like it was.
So they had two versions of Max Moon.
I don't think the version with Conan even ever got on TV.
Oh wow. Okay. Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, like Max Moon, Paul Diamond as Max Moon lasts about another month and then he's gone.
Okay, got you.
But see, Conan, the thing about Conan was a huge star in Mexico.
Yeah.
So when they tried to bring him in for Max Moon, I think some stuff just didn't work out. He always could go back to Mexico.
Yeah. Wow. So interesting. Huh. You just learned so much. We got Shawn Michaels stomping a mud hole in Max Moon. Shawn Michaels having that dope the Intercontinental title he came into the ring with.
Uh-huh.
He had made a mention of the color. We debated this on a previous episode. We talked about how there are different strap colors. So Shawn Michaels was one of those colors, people that had a different color strap.
Which, I mean, here's the thing. He did, but he didn't really like this. That color that you see there, it didn't happen that often with him. Like he may have had that little light blue belt for whatever reason on this show, but he normally had a black belt.
Gotcha.
I knew there was some times where he sporadically may have had a different color. I don't know why, but normally he had a black strap. So I think of the people who we can think of with different color strap belts, I think I said the Ultimate Warrior, Jeff Jarrett, Shawn Michaels here, and Goldust are the ones that stick out to me as far as people who would have had different color IC titles. Other than that, it's usually just a black strap.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about Doink the Clown. I've also have a family member with that wrestling figure as well. How big of it was Doink the Clown as a kid. Where was he? What was your perception of him as a kid?
Well, when I was a kid, it was probably, actually, I don't think it had happened yet. They hadn't shot the angle quite yet, but you see he's got his arm in a sling. And this is one of these things where, they planted the seed just having Doink out there for like months and months, just out in the audience or just out in the crowd, whatever, just kind of going around. And then all of a sudden he's doing something to some kids and Crush, says something to him, and then, they get into it, or I think he throws some water on Crush or something, and Crush gets mad. And then, he goes to apologize to Crush and make up, and Crush shakes his hand, and then turns around, and then Doink yanks, what Bobby Heenan says. He pulled his arm out of his swing, or he pulled his arm out, and then he whacks him over the head with this cast that has like batteries in it or whatever.
Oh wow!
But as a kid, it's like like I said, you've seen Crush week after week. They talked about how Crush is this good guy, whatever, and then he attacks Crush from behind with this thing, and you're like, I can't believe he just did that, because there's a shock of one, he just pulled out this fake arm that you didn't expect to be there, and he beats him over the head with it, takes him out, gives him a concussion, or I don't know if they say concussion, but but yeah, that set up a match, and it was interesting at the time. And then Matt Bourne had some issues. They wound up switching the Matt Bourne out, and then they put a few other guys in the Doink stuff, and then he turned babyface and then had a little person with him, and things kind of took a turn.
Yeah. We see here Shawn Michaels choking out Mr. Max.
I think this is probably the longest match on the show.
Yeah, Max Moon getting that bicep treatment there, and Shawn Michaels in all of his mullet glory. We see mullets are a thing in the '90s. It seems like a carryover, is still there. Were you ever interested in getting a mullet yourself personally?
No, I saw many kids with them though.
Black kids with mullets?
No.
Okay.
You know what though? What was I going to say about this here? So, normally every week on any of the wrestling shows at this time, you'd have a competitive match. It would normally be like the main event, but you might get a second match or so.
Yeah.
Where it's a competitive match.
Yeah. Michaels, yeah.
But Shawn Michaels is pretty much trying to get into his own. He's trying to get out on his own, because recently, like probably a couple weeks before this,
yeah,
he had Marty Jannetty had made a surprise return, and he picked up the mirror because Shawn Michaels threw him through a mirror, and he went to go hit Shawn Michaels with the mirror, but Michaels basically put Sherry in front of him, sensational Sherry in front of him. And that's how he got out of that. So that's why he doesn't have sensational Sherry with him. And this is pretty much the end for Max Moon coming up here.
Max Moon he gets very agile though. I'm watching the way that he's performing with Shawn Michaels. Pretty agile guy for.
Well, again, this was Shawn Michaels' finishing move that he was going for at the time. The suplex there, boom,
boom. Oh wow!
The 1, 2, 3. That was a fast count there by who was that? Mike Chioda.
So when did that super kick become his main move?
So even as Rock, you saw him hit a super kick.
Yeah, he definitely. I saw that. Yeah.
And the Rockers used to hit super kicks too. Not quite like another young team does, but he started doing the super kick really as his finish. I mean, he started doing it a lot more in '94, but it wasn't like the way that he does it now. He didn't start doing that until like right after he won the title. the world title.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I take that back. He started doing it probably more in like 95 as a finish.
Okay, gotcha. We see another commercial here, WWF Mania. Very 90s commercial.
WWF Mania was also another show that they used to have on Saturday mornings on USA, 10, 9 Central. To watch it every week with Todd Pettengill in the studio. He'd be talking and getting you into what was going on. I don't know if you ever saw the show NBA Inside Stuff.
Yeah, I love With Amar Rashad. I love that show.
Yeah, but it was kind of like that, except for instead of throwing the clips of people talking about stuff, they throw the wrestle matches.
Mm-hmm. Now we have a Royal Rumble report here.
These used to be awesome. The way that they would always go in, they're telling you about what's going on, they're telling the story. This is like the news segment, like I was talking about, where they're telling you about the news of the Royal Rumble. I used to look forward to watching those every week. When there would be pay-per-views coming up to see what's going to be on the pay-per-view this week.
And by the way, RIP to the legend. Just a legendary announcer.
So there you see the Rockers finally facing off 1 year after he threw Marty Jannetty through a mirror. See how the soul that he knows more to it. Sensational Sherry's going to be there, but whose side is she going to be on? Shawn Michaels is basically going to talk up and give a quick promo. And these are the things that I used to like too, because you see there's a camera on Shawn Michaels and the camera's not on anybody else. This is where people got a chance to get their characters over to the fans, where you see this person and hear what they have to say and kind of decide, do I like this person or not like this person?
No, definitely. Yeah,
everything didn't have to be in the ring. It kind of broke up the TV show to where everything's not just in the ring.
Yeah, I just want to say, I was just going to say, Gene Okerlund, man, his voice, to me personally, Gene Okerlund, probably one of my, when it comes to like just broadcasting and presentation, I think he's probably, to me, in my personal top 5, and if he might be number 1. I just loved his voice and just his way. He just seemed so professional, so polished. He just had it all, Yeah,
I mean, he was a long time pitch man, basically. Like, he was doing this back in the AWA in like I don't know if he was there in the 70s. I would assume he was, but he was in the AWA for a while. You see Ric Flair here.
Yeah.
Going to be in the Royal Rumble. He had just won it the previous year. Native American Tatanka. Tag team champion IRS. Bob Backlund, who was 42, I think, at the time. Jerry Lawler. Mr. Perfect.
The cool thing about this is WWF, when it comes to graphics and just presentation, they've always pushed the envelope. Even if you look at for 90s standards, the graphics were amazing. I'm really in awe of the quality of the production quality from a graphics point of view, from a visual point of view back then.
Listen, I like WCW a lot, but one thing that the WWF did was the graphics to get you. Like, they would do everything it took to get you, like, invested in the product. The Royal Rumble, you got Ted DiBiase's going to be there. Crush is going to be there from Hawaii. The model, Rick Martel, Yokozuna. And, they have Yokozuna in there, and they've had other big guys in there. So, you just don't know. Like, you've seen Andre the Giant eliminated in the Royal Rumble. You've seen Earthquake eliminated in a Royal Rumble before. So, you see him in there, and you might think, well, if they all band together, they can throw him over the top. But I don't, for those of you who haven't seen this, I won't spoil it for you, but you can probably see where that's going.
Yeah, definitely. Yokozuna is funny.
You got the Macho Man Randy Savage is going to be in the Royal Rumble. Papa Shango, as we later know, the Godfather. Earthquake, the Berserker, the Undertaker, Carlos Colon, father of Carlito.
What video game was out at this time? When this right around this time period?
So at this time, they would have been coming out with, I believe, the Royal Rumble on Super Nintendo.
Oh wow! Well, how popular was that as a kid?
It was popular because, again, there wasn't like a ton of wrestling games, and as we skipped over some people here, but I used to like playing the Royal Rumble video game. Plus, it was the first video game with the Royal Rumble match itself on there. So,
Yeah.
used to like that. I used to like listening to the theme songs on Super Nintendo.
Mhm.
Back then, also on Super Nintendo and Sega, they would have slightly different rosters. So
Really?
you see different guys. Yeah. So, I want to say Rick Martel and the Ultimate Warrior. I don't know if the Ultimate Warrior was on that one. He may have been on the Super WrestleMania one. But yeah, you see slightly different rosters. So
Yeah.
I had both Super Nintendo. Well, I didn't have a Sega by this point, but I wanted the game on Sega because it had some different people.
Yeah.
And you see the world title matches: Bret Hart versus Razor Ramon.
Wow. Yeah. Gene Okerlund, man. I got to get a shirt for him. I got to get a shirt with him on it.
That Royal Rumble was not my favorite. But,
No.
but again, it goes to the time period. It's just this time period, it wasn't my favorite.
Let's be honest. It's a tough watch.
It's just, again, I think I can, again, with more stuff that's come out recently, I have a better appreciation for this than I did back then.
And here we have again Bobby Heenan. Now we know that this would be that. And we know that some of the things that Bobby Heenan did today that would not be doable now. Let's just say that. Vince McMahon's sense of humor is so interesting, man.
But see, now to be fair, that's not a Vince McMahon sense of humor because at the times, stuff like that was common on TV.
Okay, got you. Just seeing it in 2023, it is fascinating. Let's say that.
You ever watch Family Matters?
Of course.
Okay, think about All American Wrestling used to come on Sundays on USA, by the way, but that was another weekly wrestling show. So for the people who complain about there being too much wrestling, 3-hour Raw and SmackDown and NXT, dude, I can tell you in 1983, I used to watch Superstars, Challenge, All American Wrestling, Raw, Mania. That's 5 hours just from the WWF right there.
Mm-hmm.
On W side, I would watch Worldwide Wrestling, Pro, the Power Hour, WCW Saturday Night, which was 2 hours, the main event, and I'm probably missing the show. So I used to watch 6 hours of WCW, so, we're talking about 11 hours of wrestling that I used to watch every week, in addition to renting videotapes on the weekend.
You're just obsessed. And that's the beautiful thing about pro wrestling. For me, it was always a safe place. I didn't grow up with a lot of money, not very affluent, but pro wrestling was always that fun place, that enjoyable place that you can escape everything. It was really a good escape. And just like you said, for me, right around, I think I was the most obsessed with wrestling from age, I would say 96 up into that. I was just obsessed from 6 up until my teens. Just obsessed, bro. As much as I could watch. And like you said, this is before the dirt, people really cared about dirt sheets. This is really before internet was very accessible and usable. And so you would just wonder what these people would do. You would just wonder what their lives were like and what happened after the show. And you were just so emotionally invested. It was a beautiful time to watch wrestling, especially in your early childhood. So I'm glad this generation of kids are able to see multiple things, not just WWE, but AEW, Impact, Ring of Honor, and many other things. This generation doesn't understand how the fact that they have so much access to so much history on a tablet. You know what I mean? And it's so easy and accessible. So, now in my 30s, I'm like, man, what a great time to grow up being a pro wrestling fan.
Yeah, right now, if we're watching, we see Kamala was being berated by Kim Shee and Harvey Whippleman. Slick came out. Slick, who used to be the heel manager, came out to kind of stop it. They attacked Slick, and now you see Kamala turning babyface as he's going after those guys who just wronged this Slickster. They just wronged him. Now you see Kamala chasing after him as we see Damian Demento in the ring right now. Damian Demento, who he doesn't really last too long. But he was an interesting looking character at least, but not someone who there's not too much to say besides interesting look, not around too long.
Yeah. So now we got the Undertaker coming down in all of his glory. What a get up, man. 1990s Undertaker.
Yeah, this is pretty much the same as, the only thing different between when he debuted and now is that he's a babyface. He's been a babyface for about a year almost.
Mm-hmm.
He turned babyface, but because he stopped Jake Roberts from hitting Miss Elizabeth with a chair when she was about to come from the curtain, so she wouldn't have even seen it coming.
Yeah.
But the Undertaker grabbed that chair when he was about to throw it, and then he and Jake Roberts got into it, and that led to match number 2 of his streak, where he defeated Jake Roberts at WrestleMania 8 live on pay-per-view with a young Randall watching live as it happened.
Now, the gentleman that he's wrestling here, I think I've seen him in a movie, actually.
Damian Demento?
Yeah. He's been in a movie before.
I'm
gonna look it up.
I mean, it's possible. I don't know that for sure, but I've never really heard about him being in any movies, but I wouldn't doubt it.
Mm-hmm. Was all right. So Damian Demento here. He wrestled he was a very short-lived career here in WWE.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen independent shows with him with.
Yeah, he was in Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of wrestlers have the look. I mean, what's his face? The guy who played Michael Myers in the Rob Zombie films. He was Nitron in WCW in 1989.
Mm-hmm.
Bane in the 97 Batman and Robin movie was Jeep Swenson in World Class Championship Wrestling.
Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of crossover with television because, like you said, they have the look, they have the presentation, they know how to present a character. So you make up a great point there.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that looks like he could be a bad guy in a movie.
Oh, no question about it. He's definitely selling that look. He looks like a hairy version of what's my man's name? See, it's so early in the day, my brain is not even turned on yet.
But okay, so for those of you who listen to all of our shows, you heard us just do the SmackDown review just yesterday, where we talked about Braun Strowman, right? And we kind of went back and forth where you talked about what your expectations of Braun Strowman is. And, this kind of fits into, like, what happened with The Undertaker, right? The Undertaker, a lot of times, was in matches against bigger guys, as we see him about to deliver the Tombstone Pile Driver to Damian Demento. That seals the deal for his fate. But, a lot of people used to say, oh, he just moves around sluggishly. He doesn't really do much, blah, blah, blah. And then, like, later on, they're like, "Oh, look at this guy go!"
I just saw the super fan with the Icon Pro shirt on. He's sitting right there. The brother, he was at. He's like the famous super fan.
Sure, I don't know who you're talking about, but okay.
I got you. I'll give you the.
Talking about the Vlad guy that they talk about.
Yeah. Vladimir. I just saw Vladimir. He had the Icon Pro shirt on, and it was a great one.
Yeah, well, now we see Doink talking to Vince McMahon.
Mm-hmm.
You see he's got that arm in the cast, in the sling. Oh, they're talking about him and Crush right now. So, yeah, they're about to probably shoot that angle probably the next week.
He's shooting on little kids.
Yeah, that's Matt Bourne you see. Right there.
Okay.
As Doink the Clown.
Mm-hmm.
So they're shooting the angle right now, or shooting part of the angle right now with Doink and Crush. And just looking at that, I mean, you can kind of like now that I've probably said it, you can kind of look at his arm and say like, it looks like there's a little bit more in there than just one arm.
Yeah, definitely.
But you weren't looking. The point is, you know how you get away with stuff like that? If people aren't looking for it,
Yeah.
then they don't know to look for it. You know what I mean? Like nobody's just looking expecting the second arm in that cast. They just look and see like, oh, he's got a cast on.
Definitely.
That's how most people observe things. They just look on the surface. They're not looking in detail.
Definitely. We see Doink chasing them, spraying them with water all over the ground on the floor. This is very animated stuff here. It's tough.
Well, but they're setting it up because they're.
Like I said, now we're in the back. We got Bobby Heenan talking. Who's this brother?
Just a random
brother.
A random security guard.
Okay. Bobby Heenan.
Yeah,
okay.
that was the first episode of Raw.
Wow. Yeah, so let's kind of do some recap here. So we definitely see that it's not like the presentation we see now. You talked about a lot of squash matches. Wasn't going to be, you see they did some great vignettes, great setting up stuff, angles, things of that nature, and the graphics. So we do see that behavior over the last 30 years with WWE when it comes to graphics, when it comes to giving, building up characters. That seems like a really big focus. They were really trying to present the larger than life characters, and you see that focus here as well.
Well, and here's what people who watch modern day need to understand about Raw is the business model at the time was house shows, right? You're using your television to build up your ticket sales for house shows. All these angles that you see, they're building up guys who are going to be facing, someone else on a house show. The main show at this time was really WWF Superstars. They were going to transition that from being Superstars to USA. Superstars, if you were watching, would have been kind of similar. You would have seen some squash matches. You would have probably actually seen more squash matches on Superstars, but you would have also had like local vignettes telling you, "Hey, we're coming to your town in this time," and you would have had people cutting local promos to get people interested in those matches at the time. They still hadn't quite figured out what they were going to do as far as what the identity of Raw necessarily was going to be. But this is just the first show. Okay, we're just gonna do some basics. We're gonna keep it simple. We're gonna have 4 matches. We're gonna do all the other stuff that we normally do, but we're not gonna do anything crazy because you don't want to set the expectation off of everything's gonna be crazy every week.
Yeah, no question about it. So yeah, it definitely was a joy to do the 30-year anniversary watch along with you, good sir, of WWE RAW's War, and it's good to see your perspective as a person who really, was cognitive enough to see that. I was 3 years old, so it was beyond my realm of.
I didn't like I said, I didn't like Raw at the time because I liked Superstars and. I used to like primetime wrestling. I didn't understand what they were doing here. Why are they in this smaller place? It just didn't make it. It just seemed smaller to me. And I kind of, as a fan, you kind of adapt as the time goes on. And then even the WWF kind of compromises this after a while because they're in that arena or that small arena for a few probably months, but. Probably by the time you get to June, I don't think they're in there every week. They start branching out into more places, and then they go back there, but they kind of start going into bigger arenas as the year goes on.
Yeah, definitely. So, folks, it's a pleasure to watch the 30-year anniversary of Raw is War with my man Randall and really get some perspective on what was going on at that time. There's several ways that you can reach us. Please go over to Instagram at the WWB Podcast _ okay? And if you want to go to YouTube, which we're growing, this is going to be exclusive to YouTube because watch-alongs are exclusive to YouTube, so that gives you a reason to go over there to take a look. Go over to the official WWB Sports channel. Again, it's called the official WWB Sports channel, and that's where you have direct access to the watch-alongs that me and Randall will do on a regular basis. So it's exciting to talk and go back into that time and see how wrestling has progressed visually, storytelling, and everything. And I hope that you guys enjoyed the watch-along as well. Leave the notes in the comments about some of your favorite moments for that time period and kind of go down memory lane. So anyway, it was nice to have you guys on, and we are out.